big day and then a couple more days before the end of the year.
The new
The
year.
new
The
year.
beginning
The
of the
beginning
year.
of the
The
year.
glass is half full, not half empty. It's the beginning of
Oh,
the year, not the end of the year.
big day. I'm Kimberly,
And I'm Zach.
and we matched today, unintentionally, but we thought, we'd bring you a
Holiday spirit.
green,
Yeah, well,
green for
great.
money, green for Christmas, green for all of the above. Just kidding. But anyway, thank you for joining us today. Super excited that you're with us and part of our family and part of our Monday mornings. Today, we want to talk about what the smartest money move for 2025 is. So, what is the smartest money move for 2025? Do you know?
That's a loaded question. I'll go back to my economics professor that said it depends. That's the answer, right? You're going to be all, all this excitement, and I know all of you are just waiting with bated breath to find out what that move is. That's the smartest money move for 2025. And like he always said, it depends. It depends on what? Well, it depends on you. It depends on where you are, and it depends on what you need. And I think that's what our message today is that the smartest money move for 2025 is to start with finding out where you are, what's going on in your financial world, not necessarily what's best for everyone else or what's going on everywhere else in the money world. So we have talked about this a lot over the years with a lot of families, and we now with information just like this coming to you on YouTube or live on Zoom, wherever you're coming to us from. This is information that you wouldn't have had access to even a decade, 2 decades ago, where you could not just go out and find facts and experts spouting opinions and doing those kind of things. So, understanding your own financial situation and your own financial place as a baseline to get started is the smartest money move, I believe, for the new year.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's where we should all start. And it's funny, no matter who I sit down with and whatever their level of financial awareness or financial ability or financial success or lack thereof, it's always interesting when we sit down and we have our initial conversation and we really talk about, where they are and where they want to go and why they're doing that. So I want to teach you guys today how to do that for yourselves. Of course, Zach and I are here. We would love to help you if you have any questions or help you through that. But I also want you to know, how do you take an inventory for yourself? What does that look like? It's a perfect time of year, right? To look back on this past year and look forward to the next year on what do we want to accomplish? What did we do? What are we proud of? What do we want to change? What goals do we want to put in place going forward? And I think it's a perfect time of year to do that. Sit down with your partner or your spouse or your family or your business partner and have that conversation, and really take a minute, put your phones away, right? And sit down and say, where are we? What does this look like? What do we want to accomplish moving forward? And take that inventory of where you are. So I'm going to tell you, when we sit down with our clients, there's 6 areas that we look at for every single one. And we give them recommendations in every single area. And we do that for free. We don't charge anything for our advice. But the first area is increasing cash flow. The second area is debt management. The third area is emergency fund. The fourth area is proper protection, which is life insurance. The fifth area is wealth planning, retirement planning, make me rich section, right? Like that's where everybody wants to start. Just make me rich. I don't care about the rest of it.
Yeah.
But we got to make sure that that foundation is in place before we can do anything else, right? Or it all come crumbling down around you. And then step number 6 is estate preservation. So going through all of that, I think it's important to know how to look at your situation, and then you can categorize those categories, right?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest um, mental problems that we're dealing with, and we're hearing about it more and more and more, is just an overwhelming amount of anxiety that people have about life in general. And one of the biggest causes for that is what they don't know. And with the money world, and especially your own personal economy, as we've talked about before, the best way to know is to sit down and take that inventory.
And sometimes I think it's what they don't know, but sometimes I think it's what they're not willing to look at. Like they're so scared of their debt, or they're so scared of the lack of retirement, or it's just easier not to address it. But you're right, the anxiety just grows and builds because you ignore it, stick
Yeah,
your head in the sand.
I don't know that ostrich disease, that's what we call it. I don't know that ostrich disease is really a good, that the best cure for that is to pull your head up and look around and see where you are. And most people that we find are much more anxious or much more concerned about being in a bad spot than they actually should be. I know there's a lot of credit card debt. I know that a lot of people have it. It's going up right now. The economy is kind of
Expensive.
tense, right? We don't really know. We hear certain things and we see certain things. We hear the stock market's doing well, maybe not in the last 10 days, but we hear that the market's going up and all things are great. But then around us, it doesn't really feel like our market is doing all that great. So, but knowing that what you've got and just looking it right in the face and knowing you can accomplish it, you can tackle it, you can beat it, is step number one. Absolutely.
So this is how I want you to start. So when you sit down, again, with your partner, your spouse, or your business partner, your family, I want you to sit down with just a blank sheet of paper, and I want you guys to dream. And I think that is the most important place to start every time. I always ask all of my clients, the very first question is, if I could wave a magic wand and tomorrow looks exactly like you want it to look like, what is that? And some people know, and some people can paint a picture as beautiful as you've ever seen. And some people are like, I don't know.
I
I
want to buy
just
groceries.
I just want to get out of debt, or I just want to stop working so hard and not having anything at the end of the day. And that's valid too, right? But we have to have dreams, and we have to have goals, and we have to have visions on where we want to go, or what are we doing all of this for, right? So I want you, that's your first exercise, is just sit down and talk about, if money wasn't an obstacle,
Any of the above?
an
Yeah,
issue.
an issue.
Anyway, if money wasn't an issue, right? If you had all the money in the world, what would you do? Where would you go? What would it look like? What does your day look like? What would you be philanthropic? Would you live on a yacht? Would you rock on your front porch? Doesn't matter to me, right? What makes you excited? And really allow yourself to get back into that space of, when you were in third grade and you can do anything in the world. I remember as a kid, we had to design our own bedrooms, right? And I remember like building my bedroom on this great piece of paper, and it was a huge king size bed, and it was a water bed, and it was full of Coca-Cola. And I had a straw that I could drink. And I mean, I want you to be silly. Like, I want you to really, maybe don't have a Coca-Cola water bed, but I do want you to dream, right? I want you to think about that, and what would that be? Because we put so many limitations on our head, we can't see past the forest.
Can't see the forest for the trees.
Thank you.
Yeah,
All
that's
my
that's
my
the old
phrases are
cliche adage.
short today. But anyway, so that's how I want you to start. I want you to start, and I really want you to dream and believe that something might be possible. And crazy enough, when we start thinking that way and we start looking at it, kind of comes true. It just does, right? How many
Yeah,
times have you put something on a piece of paper and look back at it later and you're like, oh,
yeah. I mean, we could go into that phenomenon about being focused and goal driven and having goals to point you in that direction. And that's a whole different podcast. That's a whole different conversation about mindset and what it can do for you. But I can tell you right now, like Kimberly said, getting started with knowing where you want to go and remembering what excites you will get you moving and will get you committed to your own plan, to your own steps. The biggest part, if you're going to use Waze or Google Maps or Apple Maps or whatever your navigation system that you choose,
MapQuest.
MapQuest, it's still out there. If you want to just use an old-fashioned atlas, regardless of what road you take when you leave where you are, you've got to know where you're going first. And in order for any of those softwares or apps to be able to give you the route to get there, you first have to have a destination. And that's where in the financial world, I think a lot of people fall short is I want to survive tomorrow, right? And I want to retire one day. Well, we look up when we're
Or I'm saving all of this money, right? I
on the
saved all
flip
this
side,
money.
yeah.
I'm super excited. I saved all this money. I'm like, well, what's that money going to do for you?
Mhm.
Can you actually retire? Do you have enough? Do you understand what that looks like? Do you know that end goal, right? Well, I don't know what you mean. I'm saving all this money.
Right. What do you
Well,
do with it? How do I turn that money into an income? How am I able to stop saving and start spending? That would just stress me out. I mean, there are people on both ends of the spectrum where they've started on one side and just saved and saved and saved and went to work every day and just put one foot in front of the other. And now they have a pile of money and they don't know if they can stop working or how to replace that. And then the other side of that is we spend and spend and spend on the front side, and now we have a pile of stuff, and we can't retire either. So one of those things is just knowing what you want to get accomplished, what will actually make you happy. I think we talk about on the daily huddle where its origin back during the COVID times was, to help people find some peace and some happiness and some togetherness. And here we are right now at the holidays. We were just talking to Gio before the show started about how all of our kids are going to be under our one roof tonight for the first time in a while. What are the things that really make you happy? Is it necessarily things? Is it necessarily, so all that comes into what's going to motivate you to take the steps through the next six, right? That we're going to talk about from that perspective. So start first and foremost by saying, if we could do anything tomorrow, what would it be? We have this exercise, and I don't necessarily recommend playing the lottery. If you do, that's great. Just know that it's money that you're probably never going to see again. But
but when you win, we'll manage it
we
for
had this
you.
exercise one time with some people that it was one of those Powerballs that was 18 gazillion dollars, and everybody who never played the lottery was buying a lottery ticket. And we said, everybody, if you bought a lottery ticket and you actually won, think about your life. If they, and I'm dealing with a client now, but you're gonna walk away with about half of it if you take a lump sum, right? So if you win 20 million, you're only gonna have 10. So if you got $10 million tomorrow, what would you do? How would that change your life? And that, giving them just that little bit,
Allows them to dream.
allowed them to dream about things they hadn't thought about in decades, because possibilities became open. Now, money is not going to buy you happiness. It's not going to do all those kind of things. But I think relieving yourself of the stress of finance simply by looking it in the face and then putting one foot in front of the other. We were talking about Kobe Bryant earlier. He was absolutely a spectacular person when you look at what he did and how he accomplished the things that he did. But one of the things that he was most known for was what was called the Mamba mentality, which was just never giving up, never quitting. But he also, but what was that he said we were talking about earlier? He was like,
Monday, just do better.
just do better each day.
Tuesday, just do better.
Yeah.
Wednesday, just do better.
Don't look at, do look at where you want to go and then look at what you got to do to get there, but then give yourself small steps.
It's the same conversation with Atomic Habits, right? 1% better every day. Just do 1% better, not 100% better. You don't have to change everything all at that moment. Just do 1% better. So that's step one, right? Dream. What is possible? What do you want? What does it look like if you can, right? And then it's really to take that inventory of, okay, where am I right now? So after you have that dream, not before, after you have that dream, sit down and look at, all right, what are my liabilities, right? What do I owe to credit cards? What's my balance? What's my minimum payment? What am I actually paying? And look through all of that. Do I have student loans? Do I have car loans? Do I have installment debt? What does my mortgage look like, or mortgages look like? Or do I rent? Like, what are my credit reporting liabilities? And if you got personal loans out to family or something like that too, write those down. But what is that? And look at that as a section, right? What are my liabilities? And maybe I'll give you some tips as we go forward through those sections. So when you look at liabilities, you're looking at how, obviously, most people's number one goal is to get out of debt, right? That's number one for almost every single person that we meet with. So when you're looking at those liabilities, how do you move forward? How do you get out of debt? One of the biggest mistakes that I see almost every single time, if somebody has 5 credit cards, they're overpaying each of those 5 credit cards just a little bit or a lot, right?
Mhm.
But instead of taking that money that they're overpaying and applying it to the smallest balance, I could care less about interest rate. I want that credit card to go away as quickly as possible, right? So as I'm overpaying those cards, I want to take all of that money that I'm overpaying and I want to overpay it to the one that'll go away fastest. and then I want to roll it up, right? That debt snowball method. That's the biggest mistake in liabilities that I see. The second recommendation that I always make on that section is put all of your credit reporting liabilities on auto pay for the minimum payment, not for the balance, right? You can always pay the balance whenever you want to, but the minimum payment. I see so many people that dings on their credit because they missed a $25 credit card payment. And they didn't mean to, they just got busy, right? Or they were out of town, or the bill got lost in their email because nothing is in paper anymore, so they didn't see it or whatever. That is such an easy thing to not have happen just by putting your minimum payments on auto pay. So do that. And then I would tell you that the next section I want you to look at, I want you to look at your assets, right? What do you have out there? How much money do you keep in checking and savings on average? What is that? You guys should probably know that off the top of your head. Do you have a 401k from a current employer or a previous employer? Are you contributing to that 401k? Is it matched? Like, ask yourself all of these questions. And if you don't know the answer to the question, go find out. It is a very, very important exercise to know exactly where you are in your financial situation, right? But then through that, obviously, we've talked about increasing income is always number one, right? We need to make more money because we can't typically budget our money to make us allow us to reach our goals and dreams, right? Step number two is debt management, which is what we just talked about with the liabilities. Step number three is emergency fund. So when you look at your checking and savings, not your 401k, because that's your retirement planning.
Right.
So your checking and savings, your liquid money, you need to have 3 to 6 months income in an account to protect you during an emergency. If you don't have that 3 to 6 months income, that is just as important as paying off your debt. So you need to figure out a way to do that. If it is not possible based on your current income, you got to make more money.
One of the things a lot of people, and this is starting to happen again now, and this is not supposed to be a doomsday type conversation. This is really,
Being doomsday.
no, I know, but that's one of the things that when people don't have that emergency fund, and a lot of people rely on their credit cards for their emergencies, when times get tighter, the banks start to see things tighten, which we're seeing with a lot of balances growing and things like that. They start to cut limits on credit cards back down to the balance that's owed, especially if they see a trend across a borrower, right? So if your credit score starts to drop because your credit balances are going up towards those limits, you'll start to see some of the other cards, which might have been your emergency fund, right? Where they don't cut your card off or close it, they just reduce what you're able to use. And so what we find is that people that use their credit cards as an emergency fund, in the event of a true emergency, they may not have access to that money. So it's more important in a lot of cases to save into a liquid account that's yours that you can access without asking somebody or without borrowing it, that you have that capital, and service that debt. Pay those minimum payments a little while, and don't just throw everything you've got coming in into those credit cards. We want to get them gone, but we also want to make sure that if we need to buy groceries, we can buy groceries. If we have, an emergency or the transmission breaks down in the car, that we can get it fixed so we can continue to get back and forth to work. So just that's
And for a
why we
lot of
say that.
people,
Yeah.
you're going to have a big boost in the next couple of months from a tax refund, right?
Mhm.
A lot of people get that. A lot of people spend it on vacation or they pay down their debt and just run it back up again. So I challenge you, if your emergency fund isn't set and you do get a tax refund, put it in the bank. Set it there and let that be there, and then it'll make everything else go away faster. I promise. I know it's hard, but I promise it will work.
One of the things we say too is that get that account somewhere not at the same bank with your checking account, where it's not that easy to log on and just transfer money over to your checking. You got to actually be intentional about going to get that money from the emergency fund. Just another hack to fight against human nature. I mean, really, that's one of the things that we're dealing with is our tendencies. We got to study ourselves and know how we behave, and then we do what we can to protect ourselves from our own behavior. So just another thought there.
Yeah, so definitely take the inventory of your assets, right? Like, where's my money? What do I have? Do I have any money? Do I have a lot of money? Where is it? And then in step number four, we look at your life insurance, right? Where is your life insurance? Do you have life insurance? Is it only through your employer? If it is only through your employer, I challenge you, I beg you, please get life insurance outside of work. It is so important.
And cheap.
But most of the time. But why? Why is it so important? A couple of things for you to understand. Life insurance through work is really cheap when you're young. right? But as you get older, it's called annual renewable term, ART, right? So every single year, the cost of that insurance premium gets more expensive. Yes, you still have it. Yes, you can still have it. If you've got an insurable issue and you can't get insurance somewhere else, take as much as you can get. But if you don't, then protect yourself now while you can. But every single year, that life insurance premium is going to get more expensive if you're going through your employer. Don't believe me? Pull it out, look at it. And a lot of times, as we get older in our 40s and 50s, insurance outside of work is cheaper than insurance through work. So look at that and see. But also, typically when people need life insurance, it's when they're not working, right? Because they get sick or something like that. If you get sick and you lose your job because you can't work anymore, what happens to your life insurance?
Yeah.
Goes away, right? So protect yourself. Make sure that you have that outside of work as well. If you have a free policy or cheap policy through work, take it. But also, most of the policies out there, not all of them, so you need to check when you're looking, but they have what's called living benefits. Living benefits will protect you and give you access to a portion of your death benefit in the event of terminal illness, critical illness, which is like heart attack, stroke, cancer, or chronic illness, which means that I can't do two of the six activities of daily living. I can't bathe myself, or toilet myself, or feed myself. So I have access to that pot of money that I wouldn't have had access to before until I passed away to help me through that moment. So planning for financial life is planning, right? Life insurance is planning. Living benefits is planning. Might not be the most fun conversation in the world, but it's important to have that foundation in place. So, next step, which is step 5, which is the hey, can you make me rich, right? Like, let's really grow my money as big as possible. You know that when we do that, your foundation is set. Because if it isn't, if you don't have an emergency fund, if your debt is skyrocketing, if you don't have life insurance, all of that affects your pot of money at the end of the day, right? Your pot at the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. So put those protective pieces in place so then we can talk about the fun stuff, right? Like, all right, now we got yacht money. What are we going to do with it, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, and when you get to this point, it's very important to talk about what you've got. And you've already looked at the 401k, how that's going to work in retirement, and to understand what you should be able to or could be able to draw from those things at that point in time down the road. So you can compare your income now versus what you're going to need. We can adjust that for inflation. And there are calculators that can do this for you all over the place. There's a really cool website that's called dinkytown.com, and it's literally financial calculators. If you want to know anything about anything from a required minimum distribution to what if I inherit my parents' IRA and how does that work? There's calculators where you can do all this yourself if you want to. And really, that's kind of one of the things we want to do with today is empower you to sit down and look at your own situation and then go through and find that. Obviously, we're big proponents of having a professional help you with that, but also understanding what that professional's motivations might be, and understanding it that professional, what are they limited to what they can sell and what they can do, because a lot of times you'll go in and talk to someone that's an expert, but ultimately they're going to offer everybody the same thing because that's what they do. They either sell insurance products or they sell money under management, or they do something else. And so make sure that you understand their motivations for the recommendations. I really believe that being an informed consumer is our job, right? So go consume, yes, and be intentional about what you get, but know where the advice is coming from. So do your research from those kind of things as well. And then but from that, there are all kinds of things that you can do to save money, invest money, and grow money for your future. And it's exciting when you look at it and you talk about it and you think about it. And it's also important to do it simultaneously. We
You
call
can't
it,
just get out of debt and
yeah,
then build your emergency fund and then plan for retirement. You got to
got to do something along the way. So we call it paying yourself first, where you can't just pay all your bills and pay all your debts and do that and then see what's left at the end of the paycheck, because a lot of times there won't be anything left at the end of the paycheck. So know that you've got to be intentional about starting in some sort of a vehicle and then committing to that day over day, year over year.
So while we're in the asset section, right, talking about your money, talk about the order of investing that we like to talk about with our clients. And I think this is when Zach explains this to you, I think you need to look at your money and see what you have in each of these categories.
Yeah, so and I didn't come up with this. I think the biggest form of
Of
flattery
course you did. I'm just kidding.
is copying, right? But it's the three phases of investing are free money first, and then tax-free money second, and then third is taxable money. And so when a lot of people think about investing, what do I mean by free money? Everybody wants that, right? Free money is the match inside your 401k or your 403b or your qualified account that's coming. So if I put in $1 and my employer puts in $1, that dollar is free money. That's a 100% rate of return on my investment day one. I'm going to take that all day long. But a lot of times what we see people doing is that we see people putting in 15% into that account and their employer's matching 3 or 5 or 7%. So that means that they're just putting a lot more into there than they need to get that free money. So after that free money is hit with that match, what we tell people to do is roll that into tax-free money. Now, tax-free money, that's kind of a catch. What does that mean? Does that mean I don't ever have to pay tax on this money? It means putting in after-tax dollars so that down the road, my accumulation can come to me without paying taxes at that time.
And that's like a Roth. It's like a
Yep.
Roth IRA, a Roth 401k, or life insurance. And life insurance is a huge way, to save that money and have the tax benefits on the back end.
It's all about how we're taxed. Ultimately, it's not about how much you make; it's about how much you keep. But that's a whole different. I could go on for hours and hours about that one. And then, of course, taxable money is the traditional investments that you can think about, just a brokerage account or even a CD at the bank. You're going to get taxed on that unless it's qualified. 401k over and above the match, that's completely taxable at whatever rate you're pulling it out at. So remember that free money, then tax-free money, and then taxable money are the order that I like to tell people to max out those strategies. So
when you're looking at your assets, categorize it into that and see if there's any shifts that need to be, need to be made.
Yeah.
And then finally, our last piece, step number 6, right, is estate preservation, estate planning, making sure that your wishes are taken care of, making sure that what you want to happen with your money when you're not here anymore actually happens. And we see that so many times, right? Like everybody's got good intentions. Nobody wants to go sit down with an attorney and talk about, hey, when I die, this is what I want to happen, right? Like we know it, we have intentions for it, but we never actually sit down and make that happen. So make sure that you do. Make sure that you have a will. Make sure that you have a trust, right? So you don't have to worry about your family going to probate. You don't have to worry about your family fighting. You've got all of that protection in place, and it is not their burden or their responsibility to figure it all out. Because people get funny when it comes to money, especially when they think they're getting some, right?
And there are multiple. We represent one, but there are multiple places online where you can go and do all this from the comfort of your computer, right where you're sitting, for a fraction of what it would cost you to sit down at a lawyer's office. And it's documents prepared by lawyers that spit out and give you exactly what you need, whether it's a trust, a will, medical powers of attorney. All those kind of things can be done online from one of these companies, and they're done well. They're not necessarily for like special needs trusts or things like that would require a little more.
They do have special needs trusts.
But if it's something that requires some specifics, then it might not be perfect for you. But if it's not, it's really important whether you have a lot of assets or you don't, for whatever you have going on to be your wishes to be put on paper somewhere. So, but yeah, I think that to close and to wrap up, to go all the way back to the initial question, what's the best move financially for 2025? I think it's just to start with knowing where you are, and then taking that inventory of what you've got and put together a plan. Whether it's a plan you put together yourself through research and looking at the tools that you have at your disposal, or whether you call somebody to come in and help you out with that. Any of those things would be a good move to start in the right direction for 2025.
Yeah, good move forward. I know we're right here at time, but I'll open it up for just a second. If anybody has any questions or comments or anything we can chat about in our matching green shirts today.
Alrighty, guys. Well, we are all here. I see Sorrel and Gio, you both said
Zach and
muted. So
Kimberly, I just want to say thank you again. This is one of those episodes we need to earmark and play over sometime.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
Play and pause and play and pause and play
yeah,
and pause.
like that.
Bullet point that out and figure out how to figure it out for sure. So absolutely.
Yes,
Well,
thank you, Zach. Thank you, Kimberly.
yeah,
Yes.
you're welcome.
Thank you guys. We'll sign off with our 8 tenets at the Daily Huddle. Remember to love. Get out there. 'Tis the season, right? Laugh out loud. Have a good time. Don't just stress. Number 3, stress less. Eat mostly plant-based. Take care of your body. Know what you put in as fuel is what you're going to get out. Give. Give of your time. Give of money. Give love. Whatever you've got to give, give it. Get sleep. Get your rest. Get your exercise. And then finally, take a pause and be calculated in how you respond. So most of where we get in life is about how we respond to the stimulus, not about what's thrown at us. So guys, thank you so much for being here with us. As always, we appreciate you and we hope we brought value to your day and to your week. And we will see you tomorrow, same time, same place on the Daily Huddle.
And have a Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Absolutely.
Bye, guys.
Merry Christmas.
Merry
Merry
Christmas.
Christmas.
Happy
All right.
Hanukkah.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I said happy holidays. Maybe that.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
All
guys,
right.
we are
Chat soon.
going to wake up some kids now. Bye,
Yes,
guys.
Merry Christmas. Bye-bye. Why are you such an asshole?